Hello, Saints fans. Happy trade day. Big one right off the bat happened hour and a half ago, maybe a little longer when Marshon and Lattimore was indeed traded today. So definitely something we're going to be having conversations about. Um, and if you bear with me 1 second, I'd like to pull up Twitter while I'm at it and see what's coming through on that. But I think the signal of sending Lattimore, we talked about this Sunday night on the post game show. Hold on 1 second. Um, Sorry about that. Um, it's just they're sending the signal that yeah, we're selling, and we're selling to reset the cap and try to fix some things in the future. He doesn't have a whole lot of there's some things in there that I think incremental help us a little bit this year, moving some game checks, stuff like that, that could carry over to next year. But for the most part, the 31 million dead money that in 2025 is still there. But what it did do is give us the ability to free up a lot in 2026 and 2027. That's huge. As long as we continue the trend of going, we're going to have to eat some, and I mean, get the salt and pepper and the Tabasco out and sit down and eat a lot of bad contracts 2025, and it may trickle into 2026. I'm afraid it will, but this is the starting point. If you didn't do this, you're talking about starting in 2025 then and having it that kind of 2 year process trickling and even getting closer to maybe 2027. And you don't want to do that. So I think this is a move they had to make. I'm glad they made it. Interested to see if there's anything else in the next 30 minutes or so that's going to follow it. I don't think there's a whole lot left they could really do, but there may be some stuff in there helps them out a little bit. Maybe gets a little more draft capital, something along those lines. But if that trade hadn't happened, and we'd be sitting here watching a clock watch on is Lattimore going to move, and he did move, then I think that'd have been a huge mistake going forward for the Saints. And I see we got some questions there starting to come in. So let me say this real quick. This is my opinion purely from a business perspective and a moving forward, because we've got so many problems, how we're going to fix that business perspective. Personally, I've always loved Marshon. I wish circumstances would have been different and he could have been another guy that would have been able to retire a Saint and stay here. And there is a part of me that is kind of happy for him, because had he stuck around, I don't know if he'd ever had a shot at a Super Bowl run. I do believe Washington's in the middle of one right now. So hopefully he can, and he was an integral part in our runs in 17, 18, and 19. So hopefully maybe this will be the chance for him to close the deal. Knowing we're not going anywhere in the NFC, there's a good chance I'm going to be a Commanders fan till they get knocked out or whatever happens. Just by virtue, I want Marshon to get a shot. I really, really, I think he deserves it. Really wanted it to happen here, but the reality was it was never going to happen here. So at least happy he's get that one. What did the Saints get for Lattimore? Some swapping around of picks. Hold on, I'm going to try to do this and not totally blank the screen. Bear with me 1 second. Oh, hey, it worked. Okay. So we gave up Lattimore in a fifth round next year, basically getting a third and a fourth and a sixth in return. So basically, we picked up 2 extra picks. That 6th round pick, I read somewhere that I think that's actually our pick we originally had that we gave to them for Ridgeway. We end up getting it back. So, I mean, you can look at it as shouldn't Marshon have been a first or at the worst, considering kind of where we are in the season, a second round talent. are worth a pick. Yeah, I think you could definitely make that argument. Um, but if, and this is another thing, kind of leading me to believe that the reset may be coming. One of the ways you're going to get away with the reset, and the most you can do, the faster way you can do it, is a grab as many picks as you can in the upcoming draft, either to use them or possibly to be able to package them up and move up a few spots or a few rounds if you can with the like day 3 picks. But what you're trying to do is you have to run that fine line of, we need quality players that we have a shot at developing. You know, going going through doing it all UDFAs would be a tough ask. This kind of increases your odds a little bit, because what's going to have to happen is, as we're shedding salary over the next 2 years, those guys on those rookie deals, and again we talked about this Sunday night, they have to um, they have to cover it. You need some guys that are going to be on the field again, hopefully good enough that you can develop and turn them into something, that aren't collecting big paychecks. And then once you get out of the cap hell and you can act more like a normal team would, start really making some runs at some players in free agency and doing some different things. The luxury of those guys is, whatever which ones that didn't stick around and prove it, they're kind of easy to get rid of without screwing up your cap. So all in all, I'm glad we got at least a third, because the other thing I'm thinking is, if I'm like a Washington, a Kansas City, Arizona, with some other names that were kind of coming up since last night when this was picking up speed, that it might actually happen. If I'm those guys sitting there going, I don't know if I want to give up a first or even a second for a Lattimore, when I could probably get a similar package like this with, a day 2 pick in the 3rd round, and then I'm actually 2 day 2 picks, giving up the 3rd and the 4th. But quantity over quality, they may have gone for that 2nd tier corner, going, let's cheapen up a little bit. But Lattimore gave them that ability to go, we're going to give a compensation that we'd normally be asking for probably that 2nd round. I think it's a lot like what the Jets ended up doing with Devontae Adams for pretty much the same reason. So is it perfect and ideal? No, not so much. But um, they knew, every team we were trying to trade with knew what we're trying to do and what we're trying to get out of. So they had a little leverage in that sense. Yeah, who dat warrior. This for as down as in the doldrums I've been, it's witnessing what we're witnessing the last, Jesus, month and a half. God, has it been that long? Um, the events of the last 24, 36 hours, while in some cases is not fun, because I don't care what the reason is, you never enjoy watching somebody get fired. I didn't have fun seeing that, to make it perfectly clear. And like I was just saying, I'm very sad to see Marshon leave. But the flip side of that is business is business. The head coach had to get fired, no matter how much it sucks for everybody. And I I just think Lattimore is one of the players we have that deserves another run at it. So, but all in all, right now I'm feeling a hell of a lot better than I was about 48 hours ago, when that football game was starting to come to an end on Sunday. Yeah. Okay. Two things. One, um, no way in hell I'd ever want that job. I would not want it. Um, and the other thing is, I actually appreciate let me say that. Thank you for that, because I am taking that as a compliment. But the other thing is, that's kind of the annoying thing sometimes, because I'm not even qualified probably to be, maybe a Bantam League coach, maybe, but probably nothing really truly beyond that. Um, because while I have a pretty good working knowledge and understanding of the game at kind of many levels, I don't there's guys out there forgot more than I'll ever know, but more importantly, there's guys out there that can teach it and develop again, starting from Bantam all the way through the NFL. This is true. Um, develop players, have a goal, have an idea how we're going to get there. That's their forte. They can grab everybody. Well, they're going to start walking and running in that direction, and most of them are going to follow. And those that don't are either going to get drug along or they're going somewhere else. So, I say this to say that in reality, um, I can lead in other aspects of life on things I'm talented at, and that's not one of them. Because when I read that and I said I didn't want it, and the second thing, what I was really going to say is you'd have been hired another Dennis Allen, but I wanted to clarify why I think you'd have been hired another Dennis Allen because I would have had the ability to do what's going to need to be done. Which is a very nice segue into while we're watching the trade deadline in its last few minutes, the other um, uh, speaking of veteran cornerbacks, not quite on the level as of Marshon Lattimore right now, but Baltimore traded for Tre'Davious White from Los Angeles. I think they was with the Rams. So interested to see how that comes out to answer Warriors' question from earlier about what he got, and we were talking about how fair it was. Interested to see what Baltimore to give up for that. But this is the next topic of conversation. Once the trade deadline's passed, when we start talking the long-term look forward, which is basically when the 2025 season in March, when it opens, and we're going to start getting into free agency and stuff like that. So I think the next round of really conversations, except for maybe leading right up on the game day, because that's probably when we'll all start to care about the actual games that are coming up more. But it's going to be stuff like, well, who's going to be the next coach again? Who is going to be the guy that's going to, circle the wagons, pull everything together, figure out the direction we need to go and how we're going to get there, and then start running out there and having people follow him to whatever he's trying to do. What's your thoughts? Assets we has draft picks. If you're talking about the Lattimore uh, trade, like I said, that was about quantity as much as quality, trying to get as much quality in as many picks as you can because if you are now this is a big if. We got to follow through with the reset. To do that, there's going to be some horrendous cuts in it, and it's coming up in 2025. There's going to be some restructures that are going to have to be done, and it's going to look a little ugly, but you got to. That's just part of the process of trying to eat all this. So while you're doing all that, you need the draft picks as much as you can in 2025. You want that, try to get as many shots as you can at developing talent that's good enough that you can develop. Probably won't help you much in the first year, but they're going to have to play anyway. So there's going to be some trial by fire. But while you're fixing the mess, you got these guys, they're going to be starting at low level contracts. But as you fix the team and you start bringing in better talent who's going to supplant them, unless they actually develop and end up taking the job, which would be even better. Um, but if they don't, and you start popping in the free agency or however it works out where you're getting better talent in now that your cap's fixed, they're easy to cut and get rid of without taking a big hit and ultimately winding back up where you are. Um, as far as if that's more of players, how much time we got? 15 minutes. That's a tough one because I think most of the players that some other team would be interested in, um, and to give up some assets to take off our hands while we're trying to sell. The problem is because of the crazy cap situation and the way the money's structured, like you end up trading a guy and getting some picks for 2025, but you end up taking a bigger cap hit than you would if you leave him here and maybe sit him on your roster and cut him post June 1st or stuff like that. When you take the deep dive into that, that's where it gets really complicated. And I wouldn't be surprised if there were some teams that called maybe looking for this guy or that guy, and they don't really look for seventh round pick. Look, we need some depth at name a position of a guy we've got sitting there going, we'll give you a sixth or a seventh. We just going to use them for the rest of the season, but we're thin there right now. We need to do something. And the name they says, we have to go, God, I'd love to do that because we're going to be moving on from him anyway. We just can't do it this year. We have to move on from him in 2025. He'll be a free agent. You can go sign him then, that sort of thing. So that end of it is really, really tough. Chase Young would be probably the only one. And honestly, if they're looking to re-sign Chase Young and bring him back, and it does cost a lot of money in a weird sort of way, you can give him a contract that's again the cap gymnastics if you want to go there. And I don't know if it's a great idea, but if you have to pay him a lot, you might be able to backload the thing a little bit to keep giving you relief. And then as everything gets fixed, by the time you get there, then his money kicks in. Completely the opposite of what we normally do, but that most teams do it that way. And if you need to, you can always bump money up, or if you have the ability to, because you have a year where, oh man, our projected cap was a lot higher, or our cap number was a lot lower than projected. We have this 10 million we didn't think we'd have. If you got a backloaded contract, you see teams do this all the time, make the player happy, go, hey, we're going to take that money in the back and give it to you this year. Here's your $10 million check. That normally tends to make players happy when you do it. Like I said, it needed to be done, and I'm happy about that. But on the human being level, I'm just like, it sucks. But probably in some way, shape, or form, at some point in all our lives, we're the recipient of that, and probably deservedly so. At least in my case, I was. I know. So, uh, I would like to hope so and think so. Um, but I feel like I feel like my screw ups wouldn't have been as bad as what we've seen the last 3 or 4 years. I feel confident saying that, um, which wouldn't have stopped y'all in that alternate reality that I was the GM and screwing up 50% of the screw ups we've had. Y'all still been outside with the pitchforks and the torches, um, ready to get me out of there. But by comparison, yeah, I don't think I think I'd have had to try to screw up as bad as they did. Puh, no, I don't think like I don't think we'll ever be on speaking terms because I've had pretty much other than I said the other night I put it on pause this year. I've not been a happy camper with Mickey Loomis for quite some years now. Oh yeah, good point. That is. Um, and already I can see a little. We got the regulars coming in, and I was hoping you'd make it. I didn't see you right off the bat, but I'm glad you're here. Um, Kind of like I feel like y'all are the ones that are really active. I'm getting the pulse of the fan base a little bit, and can kind of tell from. And I don't know if I could say I feel a different vibe when we're spread all over who knows where in the world and we're going through video, but like when you the comments, I think I and it just may be wishing it so, but like I'm just kind of reading it in the context is more of, hey, this is something. It's not ideal. It's still not perfect, but it's not as horrible as it was. This is a making the best of a bad situation so far. I guess we can say, and it's been so long since we've been able to do that. It's definitely been 7 weeks since we could say we made the best of a bad situation. Um, with the idea being we're going to move forward to where we can make good decisions in ideal situations, like we were not too far in the distant past. Um, let me say this first when it comes to um, the coaching search. I think there's something that needs to get you in the door and have the interview, so to speak. That's kind of how I started. Oh, there they are. I have some notes here on some names, just kind of jotting them as fast as I could of um, names that have been brought up in the last few hours. Some I kind of rejected out of hand almost instantly, more or less. But I'm looking at it from the perspective whether you're going to bring up the name of an offensive or defensive coordinator. Let's start there, for instance. Um, I know they're good coordinators, and that's the kind of thing you need to get in the door. But what the organization has to do first is what what problems do we need fixed, and it's kind of hard to say until the coach gets in the room. How are you going to fix them? But I guess a framework of they're going to have to talk in here and go, these are the problems. How are you going to fix it? They tell us, like that whole, promotion. Because I mean, technically, that's what this is. This is when you're fighting with somebody else for promotion, especially when you're kind of coming from different areas in the company or the business or whatever. And everybody, to even get considered, you got to be good at what you're doing. But the real question is, can you be good at all the other stuff that they're doing? Because when you're the top dog, you're in charge of the whole thing. So do you want a coach who, let's use Sean Payton as an example, things went really well for him. Um, I mean, no, we know the guy is too much of a control freak to just turn like the defense completely over to somebody. But I think he was good enough that he could turn it over to somebody he trusted. Again, like we were talking about the other night, somebody he trusted, but he's listening during games. He's watching during practice what's going on over there. As long as he doesn't see anything wrong, he doesn't see any reason to get involved. But if something over there needs a correcting, whether it's a player or a coach, he's going to walk over there and get in somebody's face about it. There is the type that, and there's been a few of these around the NFL, which is I really do just have my side of the ball. I think that's what we kind of tried this year. And I got the other guy running the other side of the ball, which has worked. However, whoever the head coach is has to be the guy outside of the game during practices, during OTAs, when they're having meetings with the front office trying to figure out personnel issues, going into the draft, that has the clear, concise path of how they want to do it, how they're going to accomplish it. And when he has to fight hard against pushback, let's honest, if he's dealing with the front office, he's dealing with his bosses. But pushing back against his bosses going, no, can't do it that way. We have to do it this way. Which I don't think Dennis, and the more I think about it, I think that's he was just too much of a yes man, or I don't care man, or somewhere in there when these kind of conversations were being had. So you're looking for that. Or there's the type I kind of think Dan Campbell right now is the perfect example of the like the overseer. Like I'm here, I'm making the tough decisions, I'm doing all that stuff. But when it comes to you guys, I'm really letting y'all run the show. I'm trying to stay out of y'all way. What do you need? How can I help? And when it comes time to make the head coaching decisions, are we going to burn a timeout? Are we going to kick the field goal? Are we going for it on fourth? All that stuff. Yeah, I'm the dude. But once I make the decision, I'm turning it over to y'all, and I want to see results. So, what kind of type of coach do you have? Now, I don't plan on repeating that conversation, but I just want to put my qualifier in here as I'm addressing when y'all bring up names. Sorry to be so long winded, but I'm trying to be clear. Because Ben Johnson is somebody that would definitely be on my short list. Um, and again, because I know he's a great coordinator, he is. And you just kind of look around at him, and he's a guy that um, he kind of knocked around the league a little bit. Um, 2012 was his first job in Miami, but he was kind of a lower staffer. He was an offensive assistant. He was an assistant quarterback coach, which again is kind of the lower end of the staff. Um, 2015, he was the tight ends coach. Well, he started that way. Um, I'm sorry, he was assistant quarterback coach. He became the tight end coach that year in 2015 because Joe Philbin, and I don't know if Philbin why his firing. I'm assuming some of the other staff went with him, but I do know when Philbin was fired, he ended up becoming the tight ends coach for the remainder of the year. And then it kind of went back to being a staffer again. He was an assistant wide receiver coach, but he's kind of working all over the offense there as a lower grade guy. I shouldn't say a lower grade guy, just a lower staffer. And ends up in Detroit as the offensive quality control coach, which is just another low staffer. And I think that's kind of the starting point. So it was almost like he switched jobs and then had to work his way back in, but he did it quick because he was a tight end coach for 2 years. He became pass game coordinator, then offensive coordinator for the last 3 years. So what I like about him is he obviously has some ideas of what he's doing when you look at him as a coordinator, but when you kind of look at his path, it's a guy when he finally grabbed the horns, the true um, real big coaching jobs he had was in the last 4 years. It's tight ends coach, passing game coordinator, then the offensive coordinator. So there wasn't any of this like waiting around to figure it out. He seems like he's a guy that when he was going through all his staff in lower level spots, he figured it out real quick on what he wanted to do. And the reason why I like that so much over that short period of time, I think in general, a coordinator, but definitely a head coach who's got to oversee him, or a head coach that's going to take one side of the ball. As fast as the NFL is evolving right now, you need somebody who can be that good that quick and get it to his players so they can be that good that quick. Because when you stop and think about it, Detroit has become very good very quick, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And doing what we're trying to do, yeah, we're gonna have to get very good very quick also. I lost my spot. Let me give you a second, see if I can try to get back in there. I think we're right here. I've heard that, and I tend to believe it's true. And I think this was a little of the self delusional, and I bought into it for a stretch. I'm not going to lie, because what we were seeing over that period of time was what we thought was real, and it just turned out to be a flash in the pan. And then we went back to being, as the phrase says, who we thought we were. Um, but I thought if there was a legitimate offer, the way you got Kool Aid in the second round, you knew what you had in Taylor and a Debo, and you had the chance to extend a Debo because up until his injury that ended the season, it looks like he was headed to free agency. So, like, big fail all the way around, I think, and especially now in retrospect, huge fail. Love to have that second round pick. It really wouldn't have changed a whole lot whether you traded him then or you traded him today, as far as the fact you'd save some game checks. So you'd actually saved a little money right now during the season. Um, you're still kind of looking at the same guys. You might have extended a Debo, which you may or may not have wanted to do. I don't really know how that would have worked out, but that's really the only iffy part of this. The rest of it seems like all win, 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 win for the Saints. So when it came down to smarter Saints on this decision, apparently uh, Mickey went Mickey Loomis went Saints instead of Smart. I think Smart play at that point is take your second round pick and then because and how he only played about what maybe half the season anyway due to kind of some injury concerns and all. So I don't know how much different things would have turned out if you'd made him that. In fact, one of our two big wins, he was hurt. He wasn't even available for the Dallas game. So yeah, that one smarts. That one smarts a lot. Um, if it was the Dirty Birds of the Arthur Smith era, I would 100% give you a who that's true statement. But quietly, Atlanta has become a pretty good football team. Kind of living up to their expectations a little bit. Um, now, all that being said, because they're going to have to deal with a problem on Sunday. I do get your point about this though. because sometimes just because the guy who was calling the shots isn't there anymore, and you got somebody that the players love and respect, and that's I don't think that's disputed at all about Rizzy. You might get that one game where it just all comes together, and then you're kind of back to what's going to work, not going to work for the rest of the season. So um, I could see that. I could really, really see that happen at least for one game. I don't know how far to carry down the season, but call it like the new coach adrenaline hits a team. I, I I could see that. You got me on that one. I know that's a topic of discussion in recent years a lot. Um, and there were some proposed rule changes, maybe even voted on it. Typically, when it comes to rule changes, there's kind of the way I categorize them stuff that's going to happen on the field for the upcoming year. And then the stuff like this that's kind of it's kind of like the year round, um, encompassing everything that goes on because, and especially when you're talking about coaches and GMs and stuff, it's kind of like a year long job for those guys. So I kind of try to pay attention to the on the field rules and then figure out what they mean right before the season starts and how it's going to affect the Saints. Generally, that's how I look at it. But when it comes to stuff like that, it's so hard to keep track of. And that when it affects me, I know somebody's going to bring it up and explain it to me. I guess that's the best way I could say. So I could probably answer it this way. I think those conversations will be had probably a little closer towards the end of the season when teams are jockeying that position, even though if the season's still going, and even though they're looking for guys like we just talked about Ben Johnson's likely going to be in the playoffs, so you're going to have to wait around like Kubiak was last year, and we had to wait around for Frisco to lose the Super Bowl before we could hire him. That's when those conversations I think really come up and what the actual rule is, what the NFL's requiring. More importantly, see, and I'm gonna bring this up too right now about this. Um, I think truly when it comes to and it's not about the minority backgrounds, but really and truly, I think you you have to be looking towards a coach who's going to come in and collectively, I don't know if the term bring his guys in is correct, but fundamentally change his staff because I think it's very rarely you see. So sometimes I wish that would be addressed where like a Dan Campbell, the whole time he was, and this is why I'm thinking of this, pretty much the whole time in Detroit, um, in the hiring process in Detroit, if he got the job and knowing how we know Dan Campbell thinks, Aaron Glenn was coming with him the whole time. And the reason why Aaron Glenn was coming with him the whole time was because they had worked together and Campbell knew, and he's like, I need this guy with me. He's very good and he's going to get better. So I kind of wish to say all that, like the all encompassing part of it would be thought of too. And I guess I don't know if you can really throw that out there because technically Campbell's interviewing the job for Detroit, knowing if he gets it, the Saints can't stop him from talking to Aaron Glenn because defensive back coach, and he's going to offer him the offensive coordinator job, which I'm sure Aaron Glenn knew before he got on the plane to go to Detroit. It's like, hey, my man Dan gets this job. I'm going to be the OC up there. So I kind of wish there was some kind of way while the Trump, again, I'm going a long way to get to the point, but sorry. But I wish there was some kind of way this could be all encompassing, realizing that in these situations, look, you're not just talking about that guy. You're talking about his friend who he's working with, who he recognizes, man, he's good at what he does. and I need him to come with me, just kind of part of the process and think about it as a whole. Because now, I if nobody brings him up, I'm going to bring up is Aaron Glenn as a front runner to come back here and become the head coach. So I wish they'd be more forward thinking and more this way too, also about how that those coaching trees start out and develop, you know, and the more we can include into that whole tree, especially a guy who's going to be pretty good and then he's going to develop. Because again, a head coach's job is about developing even his assistants. He's developing good assistants that other teams are going to want, like New Orleans, to go hire to be their head coach. And that process, can really build that way. And while you're doing it that way, you're developing and building really good head coaches. Um, no, they're written right here on the top of the visor. You hate so much. Uh, I put it to you this way. This is the only way I can comment on that. Don't know the man, never met him. Don't know what's really going on in the locker room. Never walked in there at any capacity, much less in the middle of a game or a practice or anything like that. So when it comes to stuff like this, I'm not saying you're wrong and I'm not saying you're right. What I am going to tell you is I have zero opinion on it because I can't back it up with one iota of confirmation. Um, and the position I'm in, doing what I'm doing and speaking live to y'all, I better have confirmation. And I just don't. So that's just a conversation. Feel free, but I can neither confirm nor deny or comment on that in any way, shape, or form because I just have no solid information, provable stuff that I know to be able to answer it. You're going to trade to whoever you can get what you want in that situation. Because the biggest thing you want that contract off your books in 2024. I was mission number one. Everything else was secondary. If the Atlanta Falcons were going to give him a bag of Doritos and a Coke for Marshon, I'd be like, take it. I'm sorry. That's just how bad the situation has been, is right now, and is going to be unless you start. And this was conceivably the only move you could have made. So whoever had the best deal, and luckily there were more teams interested, so you can get a better deal. But you're sending a 30-year-old quarterback with injury history that was likely going to retire or not be able to play anymore before he saw the end of this horrendous bad contract that's the giant anchor bringing us down that you had to move and get rid of. And yeah, kind of had to do it all at one shot, which means you got to eat a lot of this. So you're going to get whatever you get because the biggest value you had is all that was off your team. And somebody else is getting said 30-year-old, often injured quarterback with still has a big contract they got to deal with. So it's a situation, like I said, I don't care where he wound up. He for our purposes of what we needed to do, he just couldn't be here. Um, and again, because I don't have any personal issues with Marshon, and I'm glad for everything he did for us in the Saints, especially in his first 3 or 4 years in. Hey, if he has a Super Bowl run in Washington, so be it. Like I said, I know we're not going to the playoffs, and if that happens, it gives me a team to root for at least, and maybe keep watching because typically, like I really can't tell you what happened in the last couple playoffs because we ain't been there. Um, and we're a little past the trade deadline. Nobody popped anything in the chat, so I don't know if y'all were watching if anything happened, but um, as far as updates, I have it on NFL.com, and that Tre'Davious White to Baltimore from Los Angeles is the last thing they have up, and they still don't have the terms on it. And for those of y'all that managed to just pop in, because we had mentioned this earlier about when I saw this trade pop up, but by comparison of where we got to Lattimore, I'm interested to see what um, this trade involves. It's very close to. I mean, Tre'Davious White's probably at one time was in a conversation with Lattimore, but now he's also often injured with some injury issues and other stuff. So I'm interested to see what the compensation is on this. And the other difference there is while we think Washington probably going to make the playoffs and could conceivably have a Super Bowl run, Baltimore's a damn good team. I think they're legit going to make a Super Bowl run. So they may have been the team willing to overpay for Tre'Davious White in this situation, in which case it'd be a little pissed going, hey, we couldn't get Lattimore to those guys if they were willing to give up more. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that turns out. Um, as far as the actual coaches, like I said, I like Ben Johnson. And for a lot of the reasons why I like Ben Johnson, I like Bobby Slowick in Houston. Pretty much kind of that same path, about the same amount of time. They're both very young. But the fun facts that I like about Slowick is, and I did not know this, so I started doing a little research, but it kind of makes sense when you think about the guy and the way he seems to be a very detailed attention to detail guy, goal seeking, go forward. Um, I'm going to achieve my goal type individual, and not afraid to the famous story about him that's come out within the last year. People after he took a job in Houston, it was talked about a little more. Was he sounded like a guy on draft day when Brock Purdy's sitting there as Mr. Irrelevant. They've got the last pick overall, and people in the organization, no, we want to draft this. Like, so he's not even the head coach, much less working in the front office while this is going on. And people are like, oh no, we can slide, that Purdy kid as a UDFA. Let's use that last pick on this guy or that guy or whatever. And apparently, Sloak was really worked up, and he finally won that fight, and they got Purdy. But stuff has come out since then that he started like that wasn't just starting late in the seventh round with that fight. He started at the beginning on Sunday when you know he saw Purdy still there in the fifth round, going, "No, man, he's a really great quarterback." And so, point is, he recognized some talent. He did his part in developing it while he was still in Frisco. And as we talked about earlier, apparently he's the guy that's going to go up and get in an argument and fight his bosses for what he thinks is right. Going, we need to do this. We need to do this, and winning. And I kind of like to think he's the guy that even when he loses that argument, because Kyle Shanahan was his boss, and Shanahan's the exact same mold. So it probably lost some of those fights. But the type of guy, I lost a fight, but it doesn't matter anyway, because my job is to go make his idea work. So let me go figure out how to do it. Again, I kind of get the same impression of Ben Johnson. But what really drove this on about how detail oriented he seems to be and how driven he seems to be as a coach is he is the son of, and I think I'd heard this, so I think I may knew this, of a longtime football coach that coached college pros in the CFL, was a defensive guy, defensive coordinator type. And his mom was a longtime coach of track coach. I think hurdles is what she ran and she coached college in college, a hurdle coach in college, and also for the U.S. Olympic team. So I'm like, you know, pedigree of coaching. Whew, that's a lot right there. The other thing I like about him is he actually started his NFL career when he was working the lower level staff assistant jobs and all that on the defensive side. And about the middle of it, he jumped over into the offensive side. So he also has a working knowledge of what's going on the other side of the ball, which gives you the idea of he is the head coach and he is running the offense. He could be the guy that can keep an eye and an ear over there. And as long as it's going good, I'm not going to mess with it. But as soon as something goes bad, I'm going to let somebody know about it. The other two that I kind of like a lot, Aaron Glenn, um, because I think coming so far off the heels of his time here, then experiencing working for Campbell instead of Sean in Detroit, and seeing like I don't want to say two sides of the same coin, but seeing one guy do it one way and then going to work for a guy that they used to work for that guy, then going to work for him and seeing it kind of done another way and seeing very similar success so far with the possibility Detroit's another team that could be making a legit Super Bowl run by the time this is all over. I kind of like that mentality. We know he's aggressive. We know what he was like as a player. We know I'm pretty sure he's a guy that if Mickey's still the GM, wouldn't mind walking into Mickey Loomis's office and fighting with him for something he thinks needs to happen. And he's a good defensive coordinator. He's done a lot to improve that Detroit defense in his time there. So yeah, I'm kind of a fan of Aaron Glenn. And the one guy I don't want older guys, I don't want retreads, but the one guy I think Northern brought this up in one of the comments. A guy that checks a lot of boxes, except for the I don't want to retread, is Mike Vrabel. Because now, with the caveat, I don't know what happened at the end of that Tennessee run. But there's a guy played for Belichick. You know he's another guy. You familiar with him enough in his stances. He was college Ohio State coach. That's where he got his start in coaching. Wound up with the Texans for a while, kind of worked through. Ended up getting the head coaching job in a horrible situation in Tennessee. Horrible. Sort of like this situation is. Some kind of way magically gets in the playoffs this first year. Um, or it might have been a second year. I'd have to look, but very early. But that started like a year of a 3-year run where it did get better. One of those years, he was the NFL's Coach of the Year, and that particular year, he made it all the way to the AFC Championship game. See, everything's trending in the right direction until it didn't. His last 2 years, not very good, dumped. So he's last year, 2023, 2024, he's some type of assistant consultant thing with the Browns. So he's like not in coaching right now at all. There's definitely some red flags there, especially the end of the Tennessee tenure. But at the same time, guy that's going to command respect. I don't. I think he, this is where it gets sketchy. Is he the guy that's going to be able to lead and follow, or is that what got him in trouble the last 2 years, Tennessee? I think that's a question you need to answer. But he is a good coach, working up the ranks, has a reputation for a pretty good defensive mind on that side of the ball. So, of those four, the guy I would like to hire is the guy that actually great at what he's doing now, but that same success, he's going to be able to carry it forward as the head guy, making all the decisions, rallying the troops, charge forward, change the culture while he's doing it. He's actually going to have to start really working that culture before any of that other stuff happens. But that's really the two things. And that's kind of like my biggest cock my eyebrow at Vrabel is because he actually has done it once, at least for a short period of time. So, and I know there's going to be other names coming out before this is just the preliminary. Let's have some fun. Get the bet line going because I did look at that. They've got names all over the place with the bet lines next to them who the Saints are going to hire. I have a feeling as the season progresses, you're going to see a situation where some of these names probably are going to go away, and partly because we may not be interested, or something happens that where another team where that coach may have ties, or potential much better situation. Imagine that, but it's kind of off our list and on to somebody else's. So, but it is kind of fun to have these conversations, and I just hope whoever's making that decision in New Orleans, they have a real crystal clear idea of what they're looking for in a head coach, what they need him to do. So when he gets in the room, all these guys that all of them should be interviewed, I think, as of right now. Um, they get in the room and you could figure out which one of them is the one you need to hire to go do the job that you need done. Somebody would have to pay me to be on daily for me to be able to swing that northern as much as I would like to right now, just not in that position. But hey, I will get here as much as I can when I can, and I try to carve out time when the big stuff's going to happen, like the trade deadline. So ah, I don't let stuff bother me. It truly doesn't bother me. But if you give me a hard time, I like to give a hard time back. So just you can keep hitting me with the visor comments, but just realize yeah, I'm still probably going to return fire every now and then. So yeah, and I think it is getting to be about wrap up time. Um, Unfortunately, I don't have the time to go over 2 hours like we did Sunday night, but definitely want to thank all y'all for coming. Before sign off, let me give the end. Who did the Niners made a trade right at the end? Texans gave him a defensive tackle, Khalil Davis. I'm not really even sure who that is, and still no update on what the Ravens gave up for Tre'Davious White. That's really the interesting one I'm seeing right now, and I'm sure there was a 20 minutes ago it closed. So there's probably some more that are going to be trickling that were done right at the deadline that haven't been released yet. But I don't think anything because I not seeing anything from the Saints guys I follow on Twitter about anything coming out of New Orleans, unless my Twitter quit updating on me, which is always possible. But I think for the most part, what I was looking for, kind of just to sum up, is the moving of Lattimore and the signal it's sending to the fan base, to the players. I think that's important also, into the rest of the league, that there's big changes coming. There should be big changes coming. If you weren't planning on making big changes, then this is a dumb move. And we've been known to do dumb things before. So we're not out of the woods yet. But this is the starting point. This had to happen. If this didn't happen, then like I said on the outset, you're going to be waiting a whole year and adding a whole nother year to have any chance of fixing this mess, getting the culture fixed, getting young players in here, developing them, and getting yourself to the point where you can get back in free agency and signing the veteran players you need to round out your roster to go be a Detroit or a Baltimore, or dare I say a Washington team where you're going to make a playoff run and hopefully a Super Bowl run out of it. So, um, I'm going to put a poll up. I've been wanting to do it, and I had other stuff just going on while still trying to interweave all this in there. So I'm going to put it up on the community tab. Do y'all want me even to do anything on the upcoming Atlanta game at the end of the week like I normally do? Or do you want something else? So that'll probably be the two. Do you want, a normal pregame video of Atlanta versus New Orleans in week 10, or something else? And then should be able to tell me in the comments below that what these something else topics we may cover or get to on that, because I'll do it. Um, but I know this much. It's a what the hell is going to go on with our team type thing. So you know, it, I look at it equivalent. This could be me trying to get a prediction down on a team that's basically playing its first preseason game against a team midway through the point of the season that looks like it has a shot to make a decent playoff run. But I'll give it a shot if y'all really want it. So leave it in y'all hands. I'll try to remember to do this right after, drop that in there real quick, right after I log off. So if you see it, go ahead and tell me what you guys want. I will try to deliver. So, and Saint. Huh, that makes sense because I'd have had some issues with that trade. And then, especially in a class, this will be the last one. Because that was the same year Olave and Pickens and all those other guys. Of course, I think when all that went down, we'd already taken Olave, but still, there were some guys. Pickens comes to mind. I'm pretty sure he was still available at that point. You could have grabbed instead of Traylon Burks. So might have taken the sting out of that trade. So I can see, yeah, I can see where some sting and some other stuff. And I'd forgotten about that trade till you brought it up, Northern, and that one hurt them bad. Because they didn't do much with the picks they got. They sent a good player away, and the guy that rookie they were supposed to replace him, yeah, not so much. So, yeah, they are right now for sure. They got a stranglehold on first place, and with that, I think Tampa Bay was the only shot that a team had a legitimate shot. Nah, it's unless the Falcons do some type of 28-3 collapse over the rest of the season, yeah, they should like a division and be making that playoff run. So, all righty, guys. Appreciate and ladies. I know that some of y'all were there. Appreciate y'all just coming in and hanging out for an hour, just kind of see what's going on the trade line, touching some base. Got to talk about some good things. Hopefully, we can get back on track of being a little more hopeful and finding good things to talk about, and not what we had to deal with the last few weeks. Because, well, leave you with this thought: we might have to go through it one more time when it gets around to Mickey, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So, first time here, please go ahead, hit subscribe. Everybody, if you can give me a like, a share here or there, whatever. The algorithm and I has been getting along lately. And again, I got to tell y'all, it's thanks to y'all and pretty much y'all doing. So bravo to y'all. And I will be seeing you at the end of the week. Hopefully, y'all be letting me know what we're going to talk about. And till then, I'm Tim. Peace out. Who dat?